Hey, girlfriend, you know who you are. You have big, big dreams. You want to write a book, stand on a TED Talk stage, be a life coach offering wisdom from your RV in Montana, a cafe in Barcelona, or a beach chair in Tulum. Your other girlfriends and your family, they don't always get your biz savvy. Why do you want to leave your JOB? Because you're a C.A.T.S, aka coach, author, thought leader, and speaker. Meet other change makers like yourself and find out how they make it happen. This is the Big Meow podcast.
Welcome to the Big Meow podcast, sponsored by C.A.T.S Network. I'm Angela Howard. I'm laughing because I just saw that picture of me with the ears. We have fun around here at C.A.T.S, and I'm here this morning with Kim Langley. Kim Langley's business name is Life Balance, and she is an author. I'm reading your rap sheet, 3rd edition on your book. Congratulations. And a speaker and a coach. So welcome, Kim, to the Big Meow.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more. I mean, you've got a lot going on, but tell us overall what your business is and how you help people.
Well, I've had 25 plus years as a speaker and trainer, and I've worked in Fortune 500 companies and a lot of healthcare. And then I've also had the privilege of supporting some very small not-for-profits just for the joy of, trying to leave the world a little better than I found it. It's all been very rewarding. The topics I do are all ones that I love. So I always describe my wheelhouse as emotional intelligence and everything that flows from that. So I do conflict management, dealing with difficult people. I'll never be unemployed as long as I do that topic. Managing difficult conversations, respectful workplace. And then once my book came out 4 years ago, which was a total labor of love, because as I'm sure all of your cats know, you don't make a lot of money from a book unless you're Stephen King or something.
Dan Miller, yeah.
So you have to do it because either it gets you speaking engagements, which is a joy, or you're just passionate about the topic. So I was actually asked to do a book on grief and resilience. And of course, since I've been teaching the science of happiness and the science of optimism for years, it did feel like it was in my wheelhouse, even though the grief part was a stretch. On the side, my fun on the side, I know it's going to sound incredibly nerdy, is that I have been leading poetry circles for 15 years now. And the person who asked me to write this book knew that. And she was looking for a book that combined poems about grief. And I'm talking about contemporary poems, not da 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 da,
Right. Yeah.
like the poems that get you into your layers.
Yeah.
She asked me to combine that with reflections on what I knew about resilience and the science of happiness and so on. And it took me 4 years to write it, but it's helped a lot of people. So that's my happiness. That's me in a nutshell.
There's so many questions that I could ask you, but one that I know that we have all gone through, and if you haven't, you will, is grief, the loss of something, a job, a loved one, a pet. What is give us a nugget, give us a word of wisdom if you're in the middle of grief. A, how do you know it? And B, what do you do? What do you do? Give us a little nugget there.
Okay, that's a long answer, but I'll try to do a short answer. First of all, I interviewed about 40 people who were pastors, chaplains, spiritual care providers at hospitals, and then people who had been bereaved. And so much of the wisdom in the book came from them. And then, of course, I read everything I could get my hands on grief. And the very first thing that I learned is that as a culture, we are very, very grief averse. We have this medical model for end of life, and we act as if it's a battle, and it's a battle we're going to win. And I sympathize with people, for example, who are in cancer treatment and they think of themselves fighting off the cancer. I get that. I affirm that wildly. On the other hand, the bottom line is nobody gets out of here alive. So one of the things that our culture pretends is that we aren't all going to go down that road someday. So that makes grieving really hard because there aren't customs anymore for grieving. 100 years ago, there were all kinds of customs where people would come and sit with you and give you cups of tea. And now there's a lot at the beginning around the time of the funeral where people bring you casseroles and so on. And then it all kind of fades away. And that's really hard. So not every culture does grief, or maybe I should say we really don't do grief very well, and some cultures do. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
Two is you need to know, in my view, when you have to get support. So you could be grieving like any change in life. I don't want to make us all a bunch of narcissistic navel gazers, oh, I'm grieving all the time. Okay. I'm not recommending that. Wallowing is not grieving. Okay. But a lot of people's lives changed since the pandemic, for example. And there hasn't been much grief at the societal level. There's been outrage, there's been divisiveness, there's been anger, which some people
Yeah.
would say are expressions of grief. So I would say the only way out of grief is through. The more you suppress grief, the more it's going to come back to bite you. And it's important to feel your feelings without having your feelings run you. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And there is so much good literature out there, and even online support from excellent people who know what they're doing. So I always encourage, I do a little bit of, coaching and being with of people who are grieving. And I say, like, get out there what you need. If you're an introvert, find some community online that's not just a group of people who want to be sad together, but a group of people who are trying to figure out how to carry this thing.
Right.
So, and that would be my last thing. People talk about closure. That word really needs to go away. Why would you ever want closure on a relationship where you loved the person?
Mm-hmm.
You might say peace. You want peace.
Yeah.
There might be things that need to be healed if there were difficulties, which what relationship doesn't have those? But the language I really like to use now that I've learned a lot is carry it, that you learn how to carry it.
Mm.
Whoever you were when the grief comes,
Mm-hmm.
once you learn how to carry it, you have enlarged.
Mm.
Because almost nobody's life is big enough to carry grief when it first comes.
Of course.
And then you can get bitter or you can get bigger.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Wow. That's beautiful. And I'm sure anyone listening to this can use that. So I'm moving into, you're both a speaker, like a master workshop speaker and this
you're too
author.
kind. Yeah.
Well, and so C.A.T.S, the coaches, authors, speakers, we're all out here listening to you going, okay, you've done both and pretty well. Pick one. Pick your life as a speaker or your life as an author.
Okay.
Which one do you feel has given you more business or feedback, or what's the juicier one of the two for you?
Well, for me, the juicier one was and is speaking and training.
Mm.
I just live for that moment when the light bulb goes off over somebody's head.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a while to figure that out because I started my early career as a high school teacher 100,000 years ago. And then I was an administrator and I managed 80 some people, both paid and volunteer. And that wore me out. It wasn't that I was bad at it, but it wasn't juicy.
Yeah.
But the parts of the job I loved were the parts where I was facilitating groups or giving workshops,
Mm-hmm.
It was an educational position, supervising a bunch of other, mostly educators. And so that is, I still, even though I'm trying to slow down a little bit now, I still love giving webinars, and I do keynotes still and so on. So that's that. And the reason I think that's the juicy part for me is I only train what I'm passionate about. So if somebody says, can you do time management? I say, that's not my wheelhouse. I'm happy to refer you to a speaker who's good at that. Now, on the other hand, the book would never have happened if it hadn't been for the speaking, because it was the speaking and the development of curriculum all those years. Because, I mostly create my own workshops that allowed me to get my arms around a project as big as grief and figure out what I ended every interview with, what do you wish you had known when you first started down the path of grief? And that helped me figure out, just like you do for a workshop, what are the needs here? What are the unspoken desires for skills that people want to leave with that will make them feel really satisfied after this training, not just a pleasant motivational frou-frou hour,
Mhm.
because I think my workshops are motivational, but I put it right in my contract. Please do not call me a motivational speaker. Because and no offense to those of you who do describe yourselves as
Yeah.
motivational speakers, but I don't want my audiences to think I'm going to release doves and balloons. I want them to know that we're going to laugh together and that PowerPoint's going to be fun and stuff's going to happen. And they're going to walk away with skills, and if they want to, they're going to be able to use those skills right away. So it's hard to, the speaking really, absolutely, that's the foundation I stand on, but the book flowed right from it.
Hmm.
Actually, I have a funny story about that, if I may. I'm not a certified coach like through a big coaching organization. I'm actually a certified spiritual director.
No.
So I got trained as a spiritual director, which is very similar skills to coaching, but of course a little different wheelhouse. And don't be afraid of the word spiritual director. I'm not trying to persuade anybody of anything or convert anybody
We're
to
good.
anything.
We're good here at C.A.T.S.
Okay. Well, some people go,
Yeah.
uh-oh, she's going to start, thumping a religious text.
Mhm.
No, that's not me. I mean, I have plenty of beliefs of my own, but I never would force them on others. The idea is to help people emerge, help the spirit, emerge, and you're companioning them. So, okay, I had this, she's gone now and I miss her every day, but I had this beautiful spiritual director. She was in her 80s when she passed, and she'd been my director for a long time. And she was really an anamkara, a spiritual friend.
Mm.
And I kept agonizing over this book. I'd been asked to write it, and I knew I could do it, but I was terrified. I had big imposter syndrome. This will probably help our listeners.
Uh-huh.
It always looks good on the outside, but inside, I always describe myself to close friends as a tower of confidence next to a quivering mass of jelly.
Yeah.
So I'm telling my spiritual director all the reasons that I'm afraid to say yes to writing this book, even though at the same time I'm writing the proposal and it's been accepted. And now I'm terrified,
Mhm.
And she leans forward and like smacks the bottom of my boot because I had my foot up.
Yeah.
And she smacks it. This was so unlike her. Smacks the bottom of my boot, goes, "How long are we going to keep talking about this?"
Oh.
And she says, you're like, you've been working toward this your whole life. How come everybody else can see it and not you? And I was like, oh my God. So I acquiesced. And
Well, so Kim, your stories are amazing, and we're running out of time.
I know it
So-
goes so fast, doesn't it?
Want to quickly tell us how to get in touch with you?
Oh, yeah. Well, my website is my name, www.kimlangley.net.
Perfect.
And you can, learn all about me there. And then if you're interested in the poetry part or the grief part, that's a different website. And that's www.wordspa, WORD, capital SPA.
Yeah.
.net.
Nice. Well, thank you for spending your time with us this morning. We at C.A.T.S love hearing the wonderful success stories and the wisdom and nuggets that we get from our other cats. So thank you so much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Big Meow podcast, sponsored by C.A.T.S Network. If you liked what you heard, please take a moment to subscribe and share this podcast with your friends. You can also join our network filled with positivity and possibility. Visit www.catsnetworking.com to join us and learn more, together with your magical, motivated, and mystical new friends at C.A.T.S Network. Let's transform 1 million lives with your message. Are you feeling isolated sitting at home in your PJs? Or perhaps you're tired of the comfy sweatpants with holes in them that are hidden just below the camera? I mean, you could puke at the thought of another day of Zoom meetings and reporting to your BOSS. Do you want freedom from your home office desk or the office cubicle? Do you want freedom from your current career? Or are you frustrated that your online biz dreams are going nowhere? It's all too overwhelming. Where do you start? All the tech, the choices, and your message. Yep, I said your message, your brand, your voice. What is it? Do you even know what that means? Do you need a biz coach but don't want to invest the big bucks? Let's face it, being a solopreneur is lonely, but you don't have to do it alone. And here's a solution. Join C.A.T.S Network. C.A.T.S Network is a woman-only membership community exclusively available to you, the life coach or executive coach, the author, the thought leader, or the public speaker. If you identify with this list or want to work on adding some of these to your skill set, C.A.T.S is the place for you. Check us out at www.catsnetworking.com. That's C-A-T-S networking.com. Because let's face it, cats are better together.